When you think of history's darkest days, certain events might come to mind. But have you ever wondered about the absolute worst day in history? We're not just talking about isolated tragedies or the horrors of war, but moments that reshaped our world in unimaginable ways. Consider the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, where the first and only use of nuclear weapons in warfare wiped out entire cities. Imagine the suffering inflicted by these atomic bombings. Tens of thousands of civilians killed instantly, with countless more succumbing to radiation sickness and injuries in the aftermath. This event alone could be considered one of the worst days in human history. But what if we told you there's a day even more catastrophic? Travel back to February 5th, 1556. A seemingly ordinary day that became infamous for the signing of a peace treaty between the Holy Roman Empire and France. While ending a war might sound positive, the events leading up to this treaty were nothing short of nightmarish, marked by brutal battles and widespread devastation. And across the globe on January 23, 1556, the deadliest earthquake ever recorded struck China's Shaanxi province. The Jiaojing Great Earthquake claimed an estimated 830,000 lives, burying people in their homes and triggering landslides that reshaped the landscape. The destruction was so extensive that it left an indelible mark on Chinese history and culture. How have these darkest days shaped our world? From the horrors of nuclear warfare to the cataclysmic forces of nature, here are some of the most shocking and tragic events that define the worst days in human history. One of the most poignant and controversial events took place during World War II, the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. On August 6th and 9th, 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs named Little Boy and Fat Man on these Japanese cities, respectively. These bombings resulted in the deaths of between 129,000 and 226,000 people, primarily civilians, marking the first and only use of nuclear weapons in warfare. The decision to deploy these devastating weapons was made under the premise of forcing Japan's surrender and ending the war swiftly, thereby avoiding a potentially prolonged and costly invasion of the Japanese mainland. The aftermath of the bombings was catastrophic, with many more perishing due to burns, radiation sickness, and other related injuries in the weeks and months following the attacks. The ethical and moral implications of these bombings remain fiercely debated. Supporters argue that the bombings hastened the end of the war, potentially saving countless lives that would have been lost in a prolonged conflict. Critics contend that the use of nuclear weapons on civilian populations constitutes a war crime, raising significant questions about the justification and long-term consequences of such actions. These events not only reshaped the course of World War II, but also had profound implications for global politics, nuclear policy, and international relations in the decades that followed. If you're interested in exploring the impact of the atomic bombings further, check out our video about Oppenheimer's atomic bomb and how the atomic bomb destroyed his life. It explains more about the personal and moral struggles faced by J. Robert Oppenheimer, father of the atomic bomb, and how this powerful weapon changed his life forever. As we reflect on these tragedies, we are reminded of the enduring impact of war and the imperative to strive for peace and understanding in our shared human history. That said, there was a day that was even worse. On February 5th, 1556, the Holy Roman Empire and France signed a peace treaty to end their fighting. On the surface, ending a conflict sounds like a positive development. However, what makes this day particularly tragic is not the signing of the treaty itself, but the events that preceded it. The conflict between the Holy Roman Empire and France, known as the Italian War of 1551 to 1559, was marked by brutal battles, sieges, and the widespread devastation of cities and countryside alike. This war was part of a broader struggle for dominance in Europe, fueled by political ambitions, territorial disputes, and religious tensions. During the course of the war, countless lives were lost due to military engagements, disease, famine, and the brutalities inflicted upon civilians caught in the crossfire. Cities were sacked, villages pillaged, and populations displaced. The suffering endured by ordinary people during this prolonged conflict was immense, leaving scars that would last for generations. The signing of the peace treaty in 1556 may have brought an end to the open hostilities, but it did not erase the human cost or undo the devastation inflicted. It serves as a somber reminder of the profound consequences of war and the toll it takes on societies, economies, and individuals. In examining history's tragedies, whether it's the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki or the ravages of prolonged conflicts like the Italian War of 1551 to 59, we confront the stark realities of human conflict and the imperative to strive for peace and reconciliation amidst the ruins of past tragedies. While this was happening, on the other side of the globe, one of the worst events of all time was unfolding. In China's Shaanxi province, where many people lived in caves known as yaodongs, history's deadliest recorded earthquake struck on January 23, 1556. This catastrophic event is commonly referred to as the Jiaojing Great Earthquake or the Hua County Earthquake. The earthquake's epicenter was in the Wei River Valley near Huaxian and Huayin. It devastated the region, causing widespread destruction and claiming an estimated 830,000 lives, according to imperial records. The earthquake itself directly killed over 100,000 people, with many more perishing from subsequent famines, plagues, and other consequences in the months that followed. The earthquake was exceptionally deadly due to several factors. Most notably, the region's population density and the prevalence of yaodongs meant that many people were living in structures that were particularly vulnerable to seismic activity. The shaking caused these caves to collapse, burying those inside alive. Additionally, landslides triggered by the earthquake added to the devastation, reshaping the landscape and further contributing to the loss of life. The effects of the earthquake were felt across a vast area, affecting more than 97 counties in provinces such as Shaanxi, Henan, Gansu, Hebei, Shandong, Hubei, Hunan, Jiangsu, and Anhui. Buildings as far away as Beijing, Chengdu, and Shanghai were damaged, underscoring the scale of the disaster. In the aftermath, the earthquake left behind a trail of destruction and despair, reshaping the social and cultural fabric of the affected regions. It also drew attention from abroad, with reports of the disaster reaching as far as Europe. The Portuguese Dominican friar Gaspar da Cruz, who visited China shortly after the earthquake, interpreted the disaster through a religious lens, seeing it as a possible punishment for sins. The 1556 Shaanxi earthquake remains one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. Its profound impact on the region and its people underscores the enduring vulnerability of human societies to the forces of nature, while also serving as a stark reminder of the importance of disaster preparedness and resilience. The 1556 Shaanxi earthquake stands out not only for its staggering death toll, but also for its lasting impact on Chinese society and history. The earthquake occurred during the reign of the Jiaojing Emperor of the Ming Dynasty, and its effects were felt far beyond the immediate physical devastation. In the annals of Chinese history, the earthquake was described vividly, documenting how it reshaped the landscape and disrupted communities. Mountains and rivers were altered, roads were destroyed, and new geological features emerged almost overnight. The shaking was so intense that in some places, the ground rose to form new hills, while in others, it abruptly sank to create new valleys. These dramatic changes underscored the sheer power and destructive force of the earthquake. The human toll was catastrophic. More than 100,000 people perished immediately as their yaodongs collapsed or were engulfed by landslides. The subsequent waves of famine and disease claimed even more lives, pushing the total death toll to an estimated 830,000, according to imperial records. Entire communities were decimated, with some areas losing up to 60% of their population. The earthquake also had profound cultural and historical implications. It caused extensive damage to cultural artifacts and monuments, including the Forest of Stone Steles in Xi'an, where many ancient stone tablets were shattered. The small wild goose pagoda in Xi'an lost 3 levels due to the shaking, a testament to the earthquake's intensity. Geologically, the earthquake occurred in the Huaihe Basin, an area prone to seismic activity due to its tectonic setting. The region's history of geological instability, characterized by active fault lines and rift basins, contributed to the severity of the earthquake. Modern estimates suggest the earthquake had a magnitude of approximately 7.9, making it one of the most powerful recorded earthquakes in history despite not being the most massive. The international response to the earthquake highlighted its significance beyond China's borders. Accounts of the disaster spread to Europe, where it captured the attention of scholars and travelers. Gaspar de Cruz's interpretation of the earthquake as a possible divine punishment reflects how the disaster was perceived through the lens of different cultures and beliefs. Ultimately, the 1556 Shaanxi earthquake remains a poignant reminder of the unpredictability of natural disasters and their capacity to inflict unimaginable suffering. It serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity as communities rebuilt and recovered in the aftermath. The lessons learned from the tragic event continues to inform efforts in disaster preparedness and mitigation, aiming to minimize the impact of future earthquakes and safeguard vulnerable populations. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching as we explored some of history's most devastating events. From the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki to the catastrophic 1556 Shaanxi earthquake, these tragedies have left enduring marks on our world. Which of these events do you find most compelling or impactful in shaping history? Share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to suggest topics for our future videos. See you next time.